Hi there, it's Denise Eckert, and I love coming on here and sharing different ideas and techniques to help you lower the stress in your life. And today I'm excited. I have Terri Kozlowski, and she's a soulful author, speaker, and certified life coach who helps women move beyond fear, perfectionism, and overwhelm by reconnecting to their authentic selves. Through her Soul Solutions brand, books, and podcasts, Terri guides others to live with courage, emotional resilience, and mindful presence. She is a Native American woman who blends spiritual wisdom with practical tools for everyday calm. And she's here to help us learn how to quiet the noise and return to inner peace. Welcome, Terri.
Thank you very much, Denise. I'm happy to be here with you and your audience.
Wonderful. So, what inspired you to do this type of work?
It came from a lived place of trauma and having to move through that on my own in the 80s and 90s when there really wasn't a lot of conversation in public, let alone in private. So, part of going through that and learning to listen to what my body was telling me and understanding that we tend to cause ourselves the most difficulty in life because the egoic mind is driving us on a consistent, regular basis to do more, to be more, and to control everything that is uncontrollable.
Isn't that so true? Now, with your wisdom, how do we change that in our lives? To
But
be
it's
more,
a
push
simplistic.
more, and just not listening to ourselves?
We can start there, but that's really hard to do. I just retired and I went from doing to really trying to be more. And I noticed in my journaling that even thank you, Spirit, for this new day, bless me and the work of my hands, which I had been using as part of my journaling practice for decades. And I realized that is actually me doing and not being. As we transition to every different part of our life, there are those things that come up that we realize that we have to be more calm about, we have to be less stressed about, we have to look at life from what ways are we allowing our soulful self to be instead of our human self doing. And for me, part of that transition really has to do with breath work and getting quiet. And most of us are always charging ahead, nonstop, full blast. I get up at, well, not anymore. I used to get up at 5:30 in the morning and plowed through the day, didn't stop until 7 o'clock at night. And when I retired, I did it fully. And what I mean by that is I was only working 3 days a week. I retired on my Friday, which was a Thursday. And the following Thursday, literally, my husband and I got in a vehicle and drove across the country and went on vacation until he had to go back to work on Sunday of this week. So I purposely did that to disrupt what I would normally had been thinking I needed to do. Had some wonderful time in New Mexico and in Texas visiting with friends. We went to my grandson's graduation. But when I got back here, I started making a to-do list. I'm like, wait a second. And that's become, I mean, it's just so habitual for us to strive instead of be. So part for what I'm doing for myself is, and as part of my normal routine that has been going on to get me to be more present, is the meditation and the journaling and quieting the mind so I can hear what my soulful self wants to do today instead of what my egoic mind and what the striving part of me says, oh no, we have to do grocery shopping and have to record 2 shows today, all of that. Yes, but those are things that I enjoy doing. Let's make this more about the time together and the connection I can make with Denise and her audience than about working. This is the fun part. My husband says that when he always knows when I've recorded something because I glow. And I said, what do you mean? He said, your cheeks are a different color. I'm wearing very, very little makeup and there's no blush on my cheeks. But I recorded a show earlier and you can see that I have a glow in my cheeks. That's because this is what I love to do. This is the enjoyment factor. And when you are in that flow with whatever you enjoy doing in life, you glow, your heart is open, you want to make and can make better connections with people.
Absolutely. And I love that you took yourself physically away to give yourself that break and not have to go from retirement to go, go, go and put yourself in another go, go, go situation. I just love that. Now, is there any type of breath work that you tend to go to? Can you share the different breath works
For
that you do?
the main breath work, which I'm sure everybody has heard at some place, is that you inhale for the count of five, hold for the count of five, and exhale for the count of five. And you do that 5 times. And the reason that works and the reason it's so important is because it does something to the autonomic nervous system. It kicks it in gear and lowers your blood pressure, lowers your breathing rate, and it actually does calm your physical body down so that you can be more present, so that you can pause and respond from a soulful place of love instead of reacting out of fear or obligation or whatever the egoic mind is saying, oh, we have this situation, we have to handle it.
Now, so since you don't really do the to-do list, okay, I'll tell you what I do, which is I have a whiteboard beside me. And as I come up with things that I need to do, I put them on the list. And then every day I pick whatever I feel like doing. And I find that such a great way of doing things because there might be a time where I don't feel like doing this. And then if I force myself to do it, it's such a struggle. But if I
Mm-hmm.
get up and I feel like doing something creative, boom, it's perfect. I love doing that. Now, do you have any tips for the audience of removing that ever-ending to-do list? Is there something you can journal, some prompts that we can use, or
Well, I journal on a daily basis, and I journal unlike what most people I know who journal. I I start off by thanking spirit is I believe in a higher power, whether you call that spirit, universe, God, Christ, whatever you call that. I believe that there is something out there. And so I journal to spirit and I start off by thanking spirit for this new day. I thank spirit for the restful sleep I had and that I have the opportunity to have this day. And the more gratitude that I into that opening paragraph of my journaling really sets a tone for how I'm approaching the day. From when you approach from a place of gratitude, stress doesn't exist in that. You can't be stressed and be at the same time. So therefore you start off from a place of gratitude and can move through and as things come up. And yes, I do have a little notebook that I have things that I know are priorities or things you have on your schedule. Normally on Wednesdays, I go grocery shopping, whatever those things are. But if I woke up today and it was pouring down rain and yucky outside, I would have waited to do grocery shopping because I have that option. We make our schedules and therefore we can rearrange it. We have that power. And that's where people get stuck. They think that their calendar is set in stone. And I calendar things because I know myself. I know that if it's on the calendar, there's more likelihood that I am going to do it. So I do it for that purpose. But also, I do it because I scheduled to meet with you today. And it's important for me to make sure that I don't miss those opportunities that Spirit has put into my life for me to give back to others. And so when we do schedule things, it's making sure that we understand did it. And if we're coming from a soulful place, we're coming from a place of gratitude and a place of giving back, those times become very effortless for us.
yeah. And it's funny because I've gone to a lot of different workshops and they're like, well, you need to schedule in everything. You need to schedule in your self-care time. You need to schedule in this. And if I ran my life like that, I would be so stressed out because it just wouldn't work for me. I like doing things as I feel like doing them. And so you mentioned that you do a nice morning routine and set your day up. Do you do anything in the evenings to unwind or to set yourself up for a good night's sleep?
I end the day, so my husband and I eat dinner, and then I have a little notebook that is sitting by the couch that I write gratitude in, things that went well today, to remind myself that despite the fact that being and I'm trying to not to strive, that things were still accomplished. And for me right now, what that is showing me is that I don't have to strive every day to get stuff accomplished. I can just be and enjoy my day and still get things accomplished. So for me, it's a new mindset shift because of the fact that I'm retiring and I spent 57 years striving at what I do. And when we really look at the word human being, really don't stress the being part. We stress all the doings, all the strivings, and all the goals. And I am a person who said you should schedule in your self care. And because for me, there was a period of time I needed to learn to do that. I needed to make myself a priority. Most women, and especially if you have family, you're the last one on the list. Somebody else is always need more than you need yourself. And we are such giving, women are such giving people. That's part of our nature. But if we don't schedule that time in until it becomes routine for us, it we neglect ourselves. And I can speak from experience. You neglect yourself, you end up with something like a ruptured appendix and peritonitis and almost dying because I didn't prioritize myself.
Yeah, I that's what I'm doing because I was the burnout queen. My life was
Mm-hmm.
just do, 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 and it was just crazy. And I just didn't even know how to slow down. You talk a lot about doing a gratitude practice. Are there any tips or techniques how you do it? Because
People tend to try to focus on big things. And the reality is sometimes you have to start off simply. The first time that the first watermelon of the season, I'm always grateful for that first watermelon of the season because it actually brings me back to memory of watching my granddaughter eat watermelon for the first time. And that's such a fond, pleasant memory that now every time that I have that first watermelon of the season, I want to remember that. And so sometimes you just start off with the simple things. And if you struggle, sometimes it's that first cup of coffee in the morning, or the fact that my dog Lilu, who's a long haired Chihuahua, is laying in my lap. Those little things where we realize that it's not always about us, it's about the love that we have in our life. It's about the love that we give in our life. And it's about those things that for us give us peace.
absolutely. So if someone who's listening today feels absolutely exhausted or overwhelmed, what is one small step that they can take after this podcast episode to make that change in their lives?
Get quiet. I know it's hard and I understand. I spent years where my egoic mind started the moment I opened my eyes and didn't go off until I finally fell asleep at night. And I know it's difficult to learn how to quiet that egoic mind. But when you do, get that quietness and you can start listening to the soulful self, that, that very quiet voice within you that only you listen to when you're quiet and only when you can listen when you're fully present can you start understanding what it is your soul wants you to do. And your soul really doesn't want you to strive. Your soul wants you to be. Your soul wants you to do those things that you love to do. And sometimes what you love to do is be on a podcast with Denise and share with her audience. And then those times you can see that the flow is present and that you are truly in that present moment. And only then can you really find joy. Only then can you really love. Only then can you really have peace. And it's when we look at the past and focus on the past, that's called depression. When we're looking at the future and focus on the future, that's called anxiety. Only in the present moment do you truly live. Only in the present moment can you find solutions. Can you truly love? Can you truly give? Is in that present moment. And most of us don't live there.
No, actually, one of my past partners always lived in the future, and it was just this could happen, that could happen, this could happen. And I used to just laugh because all around, none of the scenarios that he brought up happened. But he was so angry and stressed out over all these little scenarios that may or may not happen, and nothing ever happened. Now, are there any other techniques to help us stay in the present? So I understand you have a free guide staying in the present. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, the guide to staying present really talks about how you get grounded in into your own being. And for a lot of people, that can be a little bit difficult because they're uncomfortable with themselves because they really don't know who they are. And but that's how you discover who you really are is becoming uncomfortable with being with yourself, becoming uncomfortable with being and not doing, sitting still, listening to your own thoughts, journaling your own thoughts, and understanding that in that quiet moment is how you reconnect with that authenticity within you. And we all have that. And our souls are longing to have conversations with us if we're willing to give it the opportunity. So the guidebook is what gives you the step-by-step processes so that you can get yourself grounded and be able to reconnect with your soulful self and be present.
Yeah, and I'll be adding that link to wherever you're watching or listening to this. Now, for people that are dealing with fear or trauma, is there any advice that you can share with us today?
So I come from a survivor of child sexual trauma. And also, my mother abandoned my sister and I when initially the first time she did that was with the court when she didn't show up for court. And my dad ended up with sole custody of two young girls in the 70s in the state of Maryland. It's the first man to ever do that. She abandoned us physically on the streets of Albuquerque, New Mexico when I was 11, less than a week after she allowed three men to sexually molest me so that she could have free drugs. She abandoned my sister and I on her deathbed when she told the hospice workers that she had no children. So, when you come from a long line of abandonment and trauma, the only way to really move through that is to actually feel it. And what I mean by that is feel your triggers, because the reality is the trauma all occurred in the past. It is not in the present moment. However, you live in the present moment with the scars of the trauma and the triggers that cause you to react from a place of fear instead of responding from like your souls. Your egoic mind's number one job is to keep you safe. And that's what happens in trauma is it the ego immediately clicks in and starts working at making you be safe again. But in that process, for me, it happened when I was 11. So when I was 21, my 10-year-old or my 11-year-old mind was still in charge of how I was responding in the world. When I was 26, my 11-year-old fearful mind was still responding to the world instead of integrating those things that happened and learning to respond from a place of love. For example, the three men who sexually molested me were Hispanic men. So I had a deep, deep fear of Hispanic men. And it's amazing how the universe spirit works. I ended up working in a company that was run by and had a lot of Hispanic men working in it. And I ended up learning how to tell my egoic mind that thank you. Because to this day, if I see Hispanic men, my ego immediately alerts me to these things, and that's its job. So I have to remind my ego that, yes, thank you for the reminder and pointing that out, but I'm a grown adult. I can move out of the situation if I feel comfortable. Not all Hispanic men are those three men that hurt me and can walk through being triggered. My mother was an alcoholic. So being around people who drank was terrifying to me because I assumed all drunks ended up like my mother, which was verbally abusive and physically abusive to me. So I was in a biker gang previously in my younger days and ended up understanding that when we would ride all day for 8 hours and park the bikes and go to dinner, people would start drinking. And that used to bother me. And I finally realized that they weren't doing anything wrong. They were being responsible. They parked their bikes, they ate dinner, they started drinking, and they all went to their hotel rooms and went to bed. They weren't harming anybody. My issue then had to be how to learn how to be with those people and not be fearful that something bad was going to happen to me. And so, again, it was about conditioning and talking myself through you're an adult. You can leave if you feel uncomfortable. They're not doing anything wrong, and working through those triggers. And as you move through life and you find new triggers, you find new things that you didn't know you would need to deal with. And because as you peel off the layers of mass and armor that you put on to protect yourself, you find out there's way more layers than you think there are.
Yeah, I love how you reframed it. And that is one of the most powerful techniques that I've ever seen. And I love that you gave us an example. Do you have any other examples that you can share with us of reframing?
Reframing is something I actually was never taught. I was years in therapy from the time I was 11 till I was 18. And they never talked about how to reframe what happened to me. And a lot of times people think that reframing is not understand is allowing. Let me use the example of how I reframed sexual trauma. I'm not negating what happened to me. Okay. So I was sexually traumatized. It affected me mentally and emotionally a very long time. And but to reframe that, I had to understand that number one, these people had their own illness. I had to forgive them, not because they needed forgiveness for them. I needed to be able to release it. Because if I held on to that, then I was continuing to hold on to the pain, the trauma. And most people don't understand that forgiveness isn't about the other person, it's about releasing the anchor and that connection that trauma has to you. So I forgave the three men and released them. So I no longer have a connection to those men, and had to my mother for putting me in that situation, for not protecting me. And then ultimately for the continued abandonment that she did, so that I wasn't going to abandon anybody else, but also so that connection that wasn't a trauma bond. And there's a lot of talk about trauma bonds. And what people don't realize is trauma bonds are not good things to have. Even if, like, my sister and I experienced that abandonment together, and that bonded us in a certain way, but we had to work through that. We're not bonded because of the trauma, we're bonded because we're siblings first and foremost. And by forgiving my mother for the abandonment, that allowed us to be just siblings and not me being the caretaker, because I was protecting my sister from all this other stuff. We had to work through that so that I could just be the older sister, like I was always meant to be.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, Terri, we're going to be wrapping this up. Do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience today?
No matter where you are, what you're doing, you need to understand that you are worthy exactly the way you are today, whether you are filled with trauma and fear or whether you're free of that. You are worthy exactly the way you are. And do you know how I know that? I know that because when you look at a newborn baby who can't do anything for itself, it is worthy of love, just like you are. And you have to remind yourself every day of how worthy you are of just the self love and love from the universe to you, just to be.
Wow, got tears in my eyes. Thank you so much. So, okay, a little choked up here.
Good.
Well, thank you so much, Terri. That was amazing. So, wherever you're watching or listening to this, I will be putting Terry's contact information. And if you have any questions for her, please reach out and ask her any questions that you may have. So, thank you so much, Terry. Thank you for sharing such wonderful information. And I'm just going to leave you a gentle reminder to slow down and enjoy life. And I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening today. If this episode gave you something, There's more waiting for you inside the Relaxation Lounge. The tools, the community, the support, all in one place. Come and exhale with us. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to www.therelaxationlounge.info, and we'll see you in the lounge.